And you've just heard Without You, which is taken from Philip Joseph Rae's new album, A Marvellous Work and a Wonder. And I'm joined now by the man himself. Hello, Phil.
Hi, Ali. How you doing?
I'm really well, thanks. I've really been enjoying the album, I have to say. Can you talk a bit about the album and the kind of themes and ideas behind it?
Okay, doke. So yeah, the album's maybe taken me about 30 years to write. I just realised the other day there's about a song at least from each decade of the past 30 years in it. From say like Jezebel's from when I was about 14, 15. Without You's from when I was in my sort of 20s, early 20s, and then there's a song from even just like about a year ago. So thematically, it kind of broaches some sort of quite emotional subjects from the death of my brother. Also, sort of my Mormon upbringing, my sort of struggles with addiction to alcohol, and also just generally just love and life, I suppose.
It's a really powerful collection of songs, and you sent me your kind of press kit from it. So I was reading the article in the Sunday Times, I think it was, about around it, and it's in that way it's actually quite a rare album because you say it's your debut.
Yeah,
a lot of these songs have been with you throughout your life as well. So how does it feel to now have collected them together and put them out?
It feels amazing. I mean, even just in this process of making the album, it's taken over 3 years. I think that is down to me as well. It's like I can procrastinate really well. So it came about as a collaboration, essentially with Scott McDonald. Heard me doing a version of what song was it? Wicked Game at my friend's wedding.
Right.
And he was like, this guy's got a voice. And I've known him for years. He's friends with my brother, Kevin. So he got me together with David Jack, the producer. Mm-hmm. And so we kind of worked remotely from each other. And I just had these songs. So I've had these songs for years, most of them, apart from two, that, you know, I'd started to devalue them. Like they were just sitting at the bottom of a drawer, like an old cassette player or something. And they were like, these are great. We've got to do something with them. So Scott gave them to David and he was like, right, let's get this sorted. And David managed to sort of bring a feeling of a band to the whole album.
Uh-huh.
But he would send me across a thing to do like a redub of a vocal, and it would take me about 3 months. So I'm sure there was some unvoiced frustration from everyone, but they've all been really supportive in getting to this place, and they're all David's work's just been phenomenal.
That's really interesting. So in terms of who's playing on the album, is there a band there, or is it?
No, it's like what I do on the album is I sing, I do some backing vocals, and I play acoustic guitar. Mm-hmm. David, he did everything else. His wife Jane did the female backing vocals on quite a few of the tracks. She's incredible. And David just managed to bring this band feel to the whole record. I was like, I would receive these tracks and it was like hearing them for the first time. It was incredible to be able to like listen to a song that I've been strumming in my living room for like 15 years, 20 years, and to hear it as if it's the first time I've ever heard a song. It's a real testament to his talent as a producer, I suppose.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, I take it that changes the songs for you because
totally.
And when you said they were kind of in a drawer, did you ever bring them out and work on them, or were they kind of there for a while and this is the first outing, if you like?
No, I mean, so I've been in bands since I was like 15, 16 or something. I'm from Aberdeen, so I was in bands, you know, CS Buchan.
Yes, I know Charlie. Yeah.
So Charlie, he's like one of my best mates, and me and Charlie played in a band many years ago called Lorenzo Snow Collective in Aberdeen, the greatest band you've never heard of. So yeah, we've known each other since I was 16. So some of these songs had outings in the music scene around Aberdeen. They did get recorded, but badly by some local producers. And yeah, and so yeah, they were like, they tried to get there, but they never really got past Aberdeen.
Just as an aside, I years ago now I did a podcast up in Aberdeen. I was actually up in Charlie's flat.
Oh, right.
Which I must give you a link to. Yeah,
That'd be amazing.
But it was to look at what was going on in the city of Aberdeen at the time in terms of arts. John Reid was there as well.
Oh, right, yeah. I was at art school with John.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's kind of the thing. I think every city in Scotland has their own artistic community, and you know, there's such a concentration, as you'll know, in the Central Belt that they often gets, well, people just go, well, we might as well just do it among ourselves because we're not going to get kind of elsewhere. That's really really interesting. So, but these songs, now that they are out, have they changed their meaning for you, particularly the ones that you had written maybe at 14, 16?
As I don't think their meaning will ever change for me. But obviously it's like they've been mine for so long. Some of the songs, people's responses to them, they don't have the context. They don't know what I was thinking about when I wrote it. So, you know, I think in the press release, I'm like, I hope they find you well. It's like, they don't belong to me anymore. It's like, here, have these songs, treat them as you will. It's like my dad the other night said, love the album, son. I think the song was Spine. He's like, I wish I'd written that song for your mother. And I was like, that's so lovely. That's not a love song. You know, it's like, okay. But that's what he took from it, you know? So I'm almost scared to give any meaning to a song. I mean, some of them are very literal, you know, but some of them could be read any way you want, you know?
Which I guess is what you do. You offer them up to people and they react in a way. And have you played them live yet? And are you planning to play them live? Is there?
Yeah, hopefully around about September. I'm going to put the album out in vinyl, so I'm wanting to do like a full band live show for that. I've played them. I played as part of the Edinburgh Hogmanay celebration up at Huxley in Edinburgh. So me and Jane did a little duo country set essentially, and that was really good. And also I did a thing. It's on my YouTube called the Tiny Village Sessions. So it was just in David's living room with a 4-piece. That was really nice to like rehearse them and work as a team rather than, you know, me sending files to someone.
The reason I asked that question is I've been doing some interviews with people that are taking theatre to the fringe, and we're talking about the difference when you put something in front of an audience and how that can kind of change a lot of things. And I don't know if you've done that enough to find that with your songs, if people are coming up to you afterwards, a bit like your dad did, and saying, oh, it means this to me.
Oh, I mean, definitely. Like I've performed quite a few of them live multiple times. Like Three Drunken Brothers has been around for years. Without You, I don't think I ever performed that live. I've played Sun Keeps Rising quite a few times live, and that obviously, or not obviously, but that affects people because of the subject matter. So I do get a response from that, and it's quite a visceral one. It's like such an emotional song, but yeah, it does.
Well, we're going to hear Three Drunken Brothers in a moment, and what's the song about? I mean, in some ways, it's Three Drunken Brothers, isn't it?
Yeah, essentially. I mean, the hints in the name. So I started writing that song as a celebration of the feeling of me and my brothers going on a night out. And we would go out and we'd have these adventures. You know, it was legendary. Just the feeling of the three of us out there on a night out, drunk during a festival or something, you know, just having this like wild, legendary time. Stories to last an age. But as I was writing the song, I thought I shouldn't really celebrate this debauchery. And I started to think, why do we find ourselves in this place? And so the first verse is about us going out there and you know, having a great time. The second verse is more pondering the reasons behind it, and also how the three of us had terrible relationships with alcohol and substance abuse. So yeah, that's the kind of context for that song.
That's a really interesting. It's a really interesting mix, because at the beginning you think this is going to be, there's a great history of celebrating, the grape and the grain and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
It becomes much more kind of contemplative.
Yeah.
As that goes on. And it is as we've said, a really personal album. Were the songs, when you wrote them at the time, were they helpful? I mean, it's a bit of a cliche, I'm sure, to go, you make any art to kind of understand what you're going through, but was there a case of that?
Absolutely. Say with like Sun Keeps Rising, that was me. I'd already written a song called Gorse, which I'm doing on another project with my brother, Glassy Burn. It's a lot more like metaphorical, illusionary of like dealing with the death of my brother Jason. Sun Keeps Rising, I just wanted to document how I heard about him dying and what that felt like and what happened at that point in time. I think it's the first song I ever wrote that was just saying exactly what happened, really. So through that, and also it's quite a cathartic song to sing at the end, where it kind of ramps up, and it definitely, I mean, it's a heartbreaking song to perform, and I almost have to like distance myself from it, but in the process of doing it, there's catharsis in the performative aspect of that song.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the emotion of playing live. It's one thing to record into a mic. It's another thing to kind of look into the eyes of people in the audience and see their responses, which I guess, might be as emotional as your, initial thing when you wrote it.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember, I think one of the first times I played that song live was in front of my sister in Aberdeen, with supporting Charlie, actually. And at that point in time, I was still quite hardened by grief. So I kind of was like, come on, you people, experience this emotion, like feel sad, because I feel sad too. And my sister was in floods of tears and I felt terrible, And but over time, I've kind of softened with the grief and kind of leant towards more compassion. So it's I think it's a therapeutic song. I hope in some way that it might help someone that's gone through a similar experience, but ultimately, it's also quite a selfish song.
But going back to this idea of audiences and even listeners, you offer things up which are incredibly personal, not just you, but that's what a lot of artists do. And that's where the empathy comes in. Often the most personal, that's the most individual story that is absolutely your story, can often create the greatest empathy with other people, I think, because they went, well, I haven't gone through exact same thing, but I've gone through something very like it.
Absolutely. I mean, one of my songs, Sweet Peas, thanks for including it on that playlist, by the way. That was a song that I wrote just before I stopped drinking. And it was like when I realized to recontextualize shame and guilt, and that in sort of admitting feeling shameful,
yes,
I took away its power. I was like, I'm ashamed of these actions. And then, it helps to dissipate it and helps to be cathartic about it and regrow.
Yeah, absolutely. And reset. I am just thinking now as we're talking, it's one thing having strangers like myself listening to your music, but you mentioned your dad and your sister. Is it almost like, I'm not saying they look at you in a different way, but do they have a greater understanding? Do you think that can happen, that those, not just your family, but those who know you, or, in whatever circumstance, that they kind of go, all of these songs, this gives you a kind of context, if you like.
I'm someone who, I talk, I'll talk about how I feel. I've never been someone who's held things, wear my heart on my sleeve or whatever. But so I think it's only people who may know me but not know me well.
Yeah.
Maybe like work colleagues or things like that, where it's like, you say to someone, I've made some music, and their reaction's like, that's nice, and then they hear it, and they're like, oh, okay, and they're like, oh, I didn't realize this happened to you or something, and you get an emotional response from them. So yeah, it can reframe people, but if you know me, I'm sorry, you know me, you know.
Yeah, again, that's interesting. It's kind of, did it take other people looking at your songs and almost to give them worth?
Yes.
Is that what we're talking about? Because if you had them there and they are as good as I now know they are, having listened to them.
Thank you very much.
It almost had to be someone else going, do you know what? These really are good. Yeah.
I suffer from terrible imposter syndrome in music and art and all of these things. Confidence, I may come across as confident, but in actuality, you know, I'm constantly self-depreciating myself. So for someone, I owe a huge debt of thanks to Scott from KFM Records, who just championed this album and just kept prodding me. Come on, let's do this. We'll do this. And he's constantly pushing me forward, because I will write a song and for about a week, I'll think it's the best thing that was ever created. Yeah. And then 2 weeks later, I'm like, whatever, you know? So for him to take these songs, and I sent him many more than are on the album, but he went this one, this one, this one, this one, you know? So he really pushed that forward. And then David repurposed them and handed them to me and said, listen to these. And I'm like, yeah, again, as I said before, to be able to hear your own songs back to you, as if they're not, you know, I'm not saying that like they're not mine. I just, to be able to listen to them really for the first time since writing it, you know, it was incredible.
It really must be. And you mentioned that you had other songs there. Now, we've talked about how long this has taken for the debut album to come out. Can you consider what might come next? Or, you know, you just kind of at the moment basking in that, you know, enjoying that these songs are out and this album is out?
I am someone who is constantly creating things. So I'm constantly writing songs. I'm constantly making music, or art. So it's yeah, I have 30 years worth of material, because I started probably writing songs when I was 14. So that'll be 31 years, you know. So yeah, and I'm continuing to write. So I keep sending Charlie tracks as well, because me and Charlie will just send each other tracks. It's like, what do you think of this? Oh, that's really good. So I'm doing the same now, and then I'll send it to Scott and he'll go, or brilliant.
Right. Well, it's always good to have someone like that as well.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Yeah. But I mean, could there then now be a kind of run of releases that you've been thinking, now that I've made that first step, you know, here we go?
I suppose I don't want to wait another 30 years. I'll put it that way. I've definitely, I mean, yeah, it's like, we'll see how this goes, but there's definitely going to be is it sophomore? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, I think that's right. Sophomore album. Yeah.
There'll definitely be a Philip Joseph Rae part 2.
Oh, that's excellent. I'm trying to think. I have a feeling Vashti Bunyan was about something like 40 odd years or maybe longer between the debut album and the second one. Something like that. Well, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Well, thank you very much. And thanks for all the support you've shown the past 3 years for this project.
It's an absolute pleasure. I absolutely love the album. It's such a great record. And this is Philip Joseph Rae and 3 Drunken Brothers.